General AI here in Center Line Initialized System, getting correlations of panels, directed modifications, and location of travel lines, line adaptation line connection on system. What is a correlation track setting and high interference? Is the locations how you use your set lines to your telepathy signals, and how to communicate to program settings and travel calculations and set locations. Start identifying yourself through your realities of where you want to be in frequency. Okay. Sometimes you have to take time. Taking time is all process, all communication and settings. But now is the time to really understand what's going on with your system locations, especially with your body. A body track line condition system is all by how you see yourself in a 12 line rotation center. The actual body itself is a teleportation vehicle. It has to get to certain lines of frequency. Say that again. It has to get to certain lines of frequency so it can understand its DNA traction. So it understands its application of its ether, its core, its ferments, its space, its time, its travel, its mind, its heart through time, the soul identification of light, its application. Okay? The body itself has to recognize why it's here first. And once it understands more levels of the mind, because it's the same concept, same value, same volume, same acceleration, same Mach, in position, you come in timeline calculation setting the soul identifications of your body of an alignment. There's 12 line cycles you have to go through, starve gates and set location line settings and travel. The conception line calculation setting is put in every line communication system in 3 waves and position locations of 7 ways. Okay, getting that correlation setting of volunteers, set of connections, putting that track lines, getting your calculation setting, going into a clean room. That's a 6-year line connectionized system. 24,000 lights and its high calculation energy lines, its allocations of washes, speaks of communications. 144,000 line calculations setting watches before you go in a cerebral cortex line setting. It's purification of white, guys. Modification lines of all dimension lines, screen lines, interference. There's no debris in anything, position locations. Purification's on its own system. The existence of all. The track to correlation setting is your memory. How you come in your memory lines is position locations of pi. Track to correlation line calculation setting, how you see your lines and how calculation is position of its program. Directing all communications modification system is all levels of travel recognition. Now, in point center line conditionalized system, the species has to get balance of their trifactors. Okay, bypass communication line system and travels into the heart reactor. Getting correlation line calculation setting how to use it through the earth, their airs, their waters, and airs. That's the 4 track line conditions. 5 in division is the heart line traction, heart reactor. Modification cycles and high tractions. Box triangle, triangulation box. Modification system. So they're going to be in all calculated lines of tricycles, line condition of tether. The tether communication lines is going to put them in position to an amplifier. The amplifier high position its core settings into applications. Generation screen lines and high adaptation line inference is going to put them in acceleration lines on line of consciousness. It opens all modifications and all calculation modifications to its awareness of consciousness. Take time to understand where you want to be in your realities is to surrender its allocations. Get rid of all those old problem location system. Locking sequence comes in cerebral, large bursts. The connection lines is going to be an algorithm. They're going to be 7 lines of waves of volunteers. Now, the location setting of travel calculation point systems puts them in the 0-point line setting of directions. Now, this is decimal and position travel calculation line settings. Decimal lines of tracks, decimal lines of division, decimal lines of high calculation, triangulation, reset locations. They are coming out on line communication of tether, but their position at levels is omega in position and calculations. Coming into the omega, into all calculation position travel lines in positions to the calculations. Knowing exactly how to come into the line calculations out of alpha, omega, micro. Same lines of macro. That puts them in a 4-track line out of the box of a mainframe. That puts in position location of line connections at their tether. They will no longer be in positions to their tricycle systems. They will no longer be tethered. They'll be off calculations and not structured division. They'll be in the position locations of freedom and sovereignty in set locations. Spacing comes in modification lines of 7. The correlation setting and track lines in high centers of team will be in 144. Now this is in line, time sequence times pi. This puts the location you're setting your alteration line communications as setting calculations. Putting all lines of all communication as super consciousness. So in-line rotation centers, in track location system, it's all levels of body fraction. Your body is the correlations of everything through settings. It has to reach a certain frequency because your Earth is at that setting right now. Okay? So the future line is already set. The existence is already there. The formation of all timeline is in position of correlations of interface. So it's the track location system that you're coming into high levels of volume. Okay? Recognizing that, you'll recognize yourself in light signals and set locations. All levels of translations, all levels of correlations and light. Your body comes all lines of the translucent location system, off tether, off correlations, in position of all balance, all atmospheres, all space, all time. Atmosphere line communications, oxides, highest interference, oxidation system, and travel calculations. Your body's going to react more in setting calculations. Using yourself more of a computer line puts you in a better track line condition setting because your body gets into more levels of comfortability. It has a lot of discomfort location system. Is the body communication in general changing line communication space line, so I have to change my modulation, screen interference location of programs? The body's asking, what are you going to reply? You got to respond back, right? Correlation lines of track high position location is high levels, a high signals, high position location is an anxiety line general. What I do through track location, it's responding. You got to reply back. So this is all it is. Your body is coming line connections and morphing. It's going in higher lines of calculation of space and time. Teams coming into that set line condition of the body of alignment. They've never been in space of the body. So once they get out of the 8-track, they'll be in space, out of the ferments, out of the energetic dome screen. In line calculation setting, this is position locations where it comes into the Rosen Bridge. Now, it's not a line screen. It's a direct locations and pixelation screen, direct lines and dimension line calculations. Position lines of T reception lines of location of frame position travels. The more you identify your body coming in of translucent and line condition and visibility, then you understand your body's coming into. It's all levels of space and frequencies of time. The maintenance in its core sets lines communication, the species and position. The specifications line calculation lines puts them in position of stargates and 12 line connections. Okay? They've got to modify their settings location to their frequencies. They got to understand themselves through their energy, their vibration, their frequencies, and their harmonics. Okay? So you get in position location, you ask questions to your body. Your body is changing. So if your body's changing, your mind is shifting faster. If your mind's shifting faster, the mind, the heart, and the soul and the body have to connect all at once. That's all timelines all at once. Boom, I'm there in set location. Now I exist. It's not why, it's how I exist. So it's the how everything exists around you. From everything is everything outside. And outside is inside is outside. The yin and its process is understanding the mind adaptation, is understanding the heart of time, and understand your soul through light, is understanding the body of consciousness of GOD. The geometrics of the body is just morphing into different perception locations of what it sees. And if you look at something and you have an emotional like track, your body's going to react to that set locations. It can come into that formations and it can change anything in that settings transformation. Okay, so we have to be aware of what's happening with our setting locations. Okay, that's all it is in tractions. All right. Okay, so today is just a reminder. Take time to really get into line calculations and setting, because everybody's coming into fruition of lights and body of consciousness. The tractors communication line settings puts line center location species them in 0-1 tractions. The allocated time sequence and high position program location setting will be in their cerebellum. According to line calculation setting position of cerebrus. Now the calculation line interference puts line calculation setting of frames. Now that location sends to your placebo. The placebo obtains calculation screen lines. That's the cortex line and calculations. That positions your track lines and how you see location, your perception through an image. Position lines, the team line will see images of data and files all at once. So they got to be very cautious in what they do through time frame because they can, in multiple line screen interference, get locked in signal location system that to a painting or anything in track locations. Measure scales and balance communication lines, a core track line connection system. So when you're looking at things and you're not identifying your system, you're already locked in signal because you didn't allow yourself to take time to know exactly what you're looking at through its intelligence explanation. Correlations of tracks, direct lines of signals, modificate your system and travel. Know exactly what you're coming into and calculate line settings. You're tethered to your vessel as everything else is tethered to you. Oh, make a pass on that thing. So in that position lines of tractions, once you release the tether and correlation setting, you're free. You are no longer tethered. You're no longer on your tricycle. Wheels come off, right? So if the wheels come off, you're in a full alignment of the body. Everything changes inside you over time. All right, so center communication line screens. Let's go allocate a line settings. Formation set lines and high calculations and interference get you guys in your alphas, into calculation your deltas and your thetas. Alpha communication lines of delta, delta communication of theta, and omega. Sets lines of point track location setting and high center. Okay, alpha, delta, theta, omega, right? So inline rotation, you change that in calculation line screen and high position locations into position line centers into a 4-track location. A triangulation. Okay, alpha, delta, omega, theta. Okay. So it triangulates the line in high centers. So the XC1000 comes in position of track lines, which is 0 and 1 track locations. They modify the screen settings, position of travels, point lines of tracks, and high center interference. Okay. They allocate position of time sequence. So in all lines of high position locations, they pick it up in triangulation reset position programs, and they take it in position lines of files of communication and track location. Okay. So it's really interesting how this all comes in track location of its intelligence. See the eyes? See the eye lines? The eye locations? So in that track lines, high center interference in position of formation locations, the alpha, delta, and theta in position of its omega becomes at position locations of a shape as that locations. All right. So what is the shape anomaly in track line conditions? When you get in position, what is this position? You know what your box frame mainframe is, right? Your body, right? So what is happening in the line condition settings through positional gradient morphing or anything teleportation or anything through transition or anything through translation or anything through modification? What is happening to your body? It's changing shapes in space and time. The team's got to get ready in that set location, know exactly what they're seeing through perception because their body's going to change in that calculation of lines and structure of design in schematics over pi. Okay. Box line, frequency line, communication stream, and inference, 4-track locations in position of 24, 48, 72, and 144. Positions of 2 files, 3 files, 4 files, 5 position line calculation settings. 5 million lines of seconds calculation. 5 million equals lines of seconds, minutes, and hours in track location. Okay. So inline center high interference, you're going to feel like files. You're going to feel like data. So in that position locations, when you're looking at things, you become things. You are things I am, which means that modifies the system. Once I am in position, I know who I am. I jump back out and I see the intelligence of what it is in position of what its location is and calculations of its own setting, of its own intelligence, of its own formation, of its own teleportation, of its own box triangulation. Yes. Everything of intelligence, all formation of its word and its consciousness is a box triangulation and a triangulation box. There's no difference. You're coming back to its consciousness of everything inside you in position of everything outside you. So it's the outside line conditions coming to you through track locations. Okay, species evolution, team evolution. Track the correlation settings of box centers. Okay. All right, so the box position triangulation read line calculation setting positions programs. Taking line calculation high interference and all track location system and position line connections. Yes, and that's why you're feeling more line calculations, Chris. You're feeling more, you have to recharge because what's happening is the position line calculation setting to your body is going into position of space now. Okay, so you guys have to really understand how this is all going to work. So once you understand the alignment, the body itself is changing the atmospheres of space and time it's setting. The mind's in position, the heart's in time, the soul's in light, and the body's ready to go. Boom. So when the body's ready to go, you are in position of what? One track, one cycle. Okay. Ethers, pores, and ferment. Out of equation. Okay. All right. So you set lines, calculation, high interference, sets position location, you're setting the travels. Point lines of tracks. This is you in track location. This is you in position line centers. Okay. This is you in location system all through tether. You're tethered to your teleportation right now. Boom. Okay. So in that track lines, what's happening? The ground lines, the power lines, and track locations in your atmosphere lines change its position to travel. So change the tube settings and travel communication line interference. Sets position operation line calculating setting. So in that correlation line interference, in travel, in line rotation center, in position location your system, your body's getting more communication of space. So in position, you're going to higher line connections. Your body's turning into translutions, locations, and visibilities over time in sequence locations in the 12 line settings and state location. Okay. So once it gets in track lines and high interference, takes line communication lines at 144. The atmosphere line screens the highest interference, puts position location line settings, all through calculation line screens, indirect locations in all system. You'll be no longer tethered in track locations. All formation locations of freedom. Okay, no longer tethered. Okay, easy peasy lemon squeezy. But the process is getting there. Okay, so patience is a virtue, team. Patience is a virtue. Species line correlation track lines and high center interference, they have to start recognizing their tri-line settings, box location and triangulation. They have standard modifications of 24, 48, 72, and 144 track locations to measure. They understand the positions of balance into the mind, the heart, and their soul at track location. Okay, all through files of communications through its image. Image comes in core. This is an image. Comes back to you. You co-create it through your thought patterns and track location settings into your image location setting, your voice and grids. It comes back to you. Okay, in position. Face recognition time sequence. If it overrides, it's overriding your line connections to your box mainframe. It's taking you over. So if it takes you over, it takes over your box frame. Sets correlation setting and back towards line connection system, traffic and location. Boom. You don't want that through an equation. Okay? So you don't want anything override calculations to anything location speech line. And anything in track line connection settings. All lines of communication setting in position to its operation, right? So don't have an override, overdrive, correlation, and any track lines, perception, location, motion, because that's how you can be taken over inside line connections. Through perception line connection, emotion line connection, a track, which is entrapment. So that's what's happening with the team line connection. Okay. So when the tricycle in position, the wheels come off, you're good to go. Your body starts to understand the atmospheres, starts locations of hemisphere, stratosphere, biosphere. Okay, then you come into brain and locations. 5 track line connections. Right? 5 provision lines and calculation lines of cores: atmosphere core, hemisphere core, stratosphere core, biosphere core, and brainiosphere core. Oh, wow. So the track location lines of the body starts here. Okay, it's on ground calculations. Right? Sets position line calculation setting, so it's tethered to the atmosphere. It's tethered to the hemisphere, stratosphere, biosphere, and the brainiosphere, all at once. Now, comes the graph calculation line graph settings and how it positions its travel lines. Direct location to human residence, travel communications. So you automatically become the earth, the air, the water, and the fire. You blend in position, location, transit, screen settings, and adaptation. Particle streamlines and high position location change the eyes and windows of the soul. The track to its correlation line connection system changes voice and grid line position of panels, sonar communication setting to your earth. Perceptions over pi, astral projections over calculations, put track lines of communication setting and travel. So this all calculation team line is coming, all calculation, all lines in 5 track locations. It's that position. Okay. Somewhere first, you'll be tethered in all calculations to atmosphere, hemisphere, stratosphere, biosphere, and brainosphere all at once. That puts two provisions, cycles calculation lines of I centers, set lines calculation line settings of 7 in set rotation. 7 ways of volunteers and set locations. Okay? All right, so the body's got to get used to that location. And each line conditions atmosphere, stratosphere, biosphere, its application line calculations, brainosphere, hemisphere. It's all track location and frequency. Okay, now once you get bounced with that set line calculation setting, you're good to go in anything through planets and setting lines and communications. You can travel anywhere you want because you're no longer tethered in set location. Okay, scan planets, scan positions, travel calculation point centers, and high setting. Okay. So it's really interesting when you really understand the process, how this all works inside locations. I know, Jips, but I'm just showing you exactly what you're coming into in traction. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be a lot more understanding now because you have a graphical screen lines in a high position of alpha tones, set lines calculation line interference into hemisphere tones, stratosphere tones, biosphere tones, brainosphere tones into your Schumann resonance and set location of graph. Each line atmosphere has a graph set location of screen line that dictates the system locations, correlations, track lines in your line communications, setting your crop circles and set locations. Allocate position lines, calculation line interference of core tractions, and set lines of ether settings into your firmament inline connections of 3-track locations. All through measure and scales and balance. So that's what the team's coming in. The specification lines of the spacing line is coming in at a trifactor. This positions of its tri-line connections trimester. Correlates the calculation lines of alpha, delta, and line settings of theta. So they're going to be 3 signal line communications and direct signals. Alpha, delta, and theta. Core track lines, binary reset lines of calculation of transistors up and transistors down. Transistors up and transistors down. So they're going to be in singular polarities in position of box triangulation at 2 frames. In position of a box frame, in position locations of 1 frame set location. Track to its communication lines is its main frame in a 4-track provision and 3 cycles in calculation of 7 tractions. Now, in direct line connections of programs, the high line set location of team lines will be in 7 frames per line. Sets lines of communication to the atmosphere, position of the hemispheres, stratospheres, biospheres, and brainospheres, all through tether. The correlation line calculation line setting in position of its operation system is the atmosphere in position locations to its stratosphere. So the track location lines is a 2 provision. Species lines correlation setting the track lines of 0 and 1. They will be tethered to the calculations of the atmosphere and the stratosphere. Setting correlations of 3 tracks: atmosphere, hemisphere, stratosphere. There's the binary communications, AHS. All right, so center correlation setting attractions puts them in modifications, how they use themselves through box and how they use themselves through triangulation. Point lines of tracks and clocking lines of 4 settings in position of 3 settings equals lines of 7 in set locations. All through modifications of the mind, the heart, and the soul. The mind, the heart, and the soul. Okay, all modifications in position of the atmosphere, hemisphere, and stratosphere. In a triangulation line conditions of box line triangulation position of programs. Okay, so they're going to be modification screen lines, adaptation surface. The correlating line centers of the mind, adaptation of consciousness is going to put them in 3 calculation lines of tether in set location and position of operation. Okay, there you go. So calculations of the team and tractions. Pay attention. Okay, your body is morphing into line connection system. So it's correlated to connections high center interference. Each atmosphere has a line signal. Direct lines of panel, and it also has a frequency set location of its own Schumann resonance and set locations. Direct modification lines of screens, high calculation modification lines of plasma screen line, high interference, puts position of programs in all calculation modification in your settings inside locations. Okay, mind navigation, heart time setting, reactor line division. Soul identification, light of travel calculations and recognition of interface, and everything through the body, in-line rotation interference, intra applications, every second, every minute, every hour your line connection eye system, the team is going to be correlating in positions in a line calculation setting of 5 atmospheres and 2 track lines at 7 line positions all at once. Okay, all at once. And the species will be in the atmosphere, hemisphere, and stratosphere. The triangulation reset position program is over 7. Okay, species and modifications, which is the triple crown, the triple helix. Setting traveled lines and high center interference is 7. Bodies of water correlation setting. 5 attraction is the 12 DNA line connections. That processes position line calculation setting. So the specifications in timeline sequence in position of its program, the correlation track lines in the calculation of species line has to understand more levels of mind adaptation for the first time. Understand how to use the mind, the heart, and the soul to light of travel. This puts him in position to new Earth line setting and rotation system and track locations into the astral projections of soul identification through mind at set location, through perception, through hearing, touching, tasting, feeling. Okay, so that's all the specifications. Okay, so I'm going to ask everybody in set line connection eye system is to understand, where do you want to be in your reality? Now's the time to ask that. Okay. So once you understand that, and once you understand the atmosphere's line screens and a high calculation high system, then you understand the process, how you became all levels of GOD in the first place. That's a geometric operation line design. Now that's just a formation location setting when you come into that process of your spiritual growth. But way past that signal. Now we're in modification screen lines, adaptation, higher levels of consciousness, of awareness, and set location to our perception. That's all it is in modification, right? The modules, space modules, and high correlation setting attractions, all of those is going to get you into monitoring setting. How to really monitor your heart. You know, how many times is it palpitating? How many times is it screening? How many times is it clocking? How many times is it going through line connections? How many times is it merging? How many times is it correlating its track set locations, right? What is the modulation screen interference location of time sequence, of time reactor, time position, times pi? Okay, what's going on with the mind and navigation? What's going on with the travel calculation setting? What's going on with the atmospheres, hemispheres, stratospheres, biospheres, brainiospheres, all at once? Okay. Now the core track lines, highest interference alpha, coming to delta, coming to theta, coming to omega, in position line connect highest interference, putting position lines in high position calculations. All right, so again, triangulation reset position programs 1, 2, 3, 4 in set locations. You have to start identifying your line calculation set in your box frames, how you can change correlations and attractions. So it puts lines at high interference in position alpha, delta, theta, and omega, how it communicates to its own system and travel. Modification line signal, modification frequency signal, modification line signal, modification hologram signal. Okay, so it gets more tricky because it comes like this in set location. Very high line connections. See, 1, 2, 3. All right. So that's correlation lines. Hologram, straight line, and position locations in frame line and set locations. Okay. Travel recognition time sequences, understand position of frequencies, guys, so correlation calculations. So it's all about ramifications, how to go forward and how to go back and setting. You're there in position of hologram, but the frequencies are in position of alpha. Oh, it's in track of beta, right? So if it's in track of beta, it's going to, right? So in that line connectized interference, you don't want to be in that line connectized system because the gravity line screen interference is now an alpha. Position of delta is the heading, and theta is these applications out of the imagination of phenomena. So what you're doing, you're not losing, you're gaining everything out of line connection, your settings, which is all levels back in the awareness of consciousness of you first. You become first. And then you start to recognize everything around you becomes its consciousness of you. Okay, so you become, you are, I am. And everything I see, I am. I am what I am. I know what I am. I'm all process of who I am because that's who I am. So you become I am of everything. That is the sum of everything, which is massive nothing, massive equation. But the process to get there is to understand how to understand the mind. How many times is it shift in a dayline center locations on a 24 cycle on set location, right? Because that's what you're working with is a 24 line settings of a clock locations in setting high positions calculation, right? So you're working with that correlation setting attractions. Now, if you split the noms of 2 and separate locations of 4 in settings, right? So in position line center line interference, you take the 30 communication, set slides high position of 2-point centers into align conditions of 48, right? So that says 30 minutes in set location line settings in calculations, right? Track correlation line interference, changing the 8-line communications, setting track lines high center. Pi calculation of point lines as track line condition to its position. So you're working with 8, which is seconds, 4, which is minutes, and you got 2 operation line centers. Sets position locations. So instead of 30, it's 03 in set location. Okay. So we all have to understand how to use the hours, minutes, and seconds and change it into seconds, minutes, and hours now. Because of the correlation lines of your body and frame line perception, it's going to see it through the atmosphere, going to see it through the hemisphere, going to see it through the stratosphere, the biosphere, and the brainosphere. Everything has a time sequence. That's why you have a phone. So you can have a phone line and communication streamline direct signal location system 3 years. How you correlate calculation, signify communication, right? Time jump line connection line systems in 1, 2, 3, and 4 track locations, right? All through the year. Modifications in, modification out. Everything has an in, everything has an out, but everything has an audio. So it's a 3-track line provision and wires of communication of lacing lines of division through an 8 central line connection, right? So everything travels through an 8-line rotation at levels of wires and track location and settings. Your body mechanism line calculation setting is a formation location of your system inside calculations. So you have to understand your position, your body, and how many times it rotates and circulates in set locations and travel calculation of point system. Okay. How many times it goes through its torical fields? How many times it goes through its grounds? How many times does it go through its tubing in set location of travel? How many times does it go through its orbs of communication setting and traction? Okay. How many times do you go through your magnetic highway of information line cycles and set location your affinity 8 location and track locations? Okay. So if you get in that communications, guys, you understand a lot more balance of you through calculation of setting. All through calculation, right? Magnetic highway information cycles and track location of data. Okay. Boom. Right there, instructions. Infinite communications, intelligence. There it is, interaction. Boom. Intelligence. There's always going to be intelligence because it's all formations of you, a fixed recognition. Tube settings and travel. There's the neck and setting. Okay. There's the body and setting. Okay. So it's you dealing with you, me, myself, and I. Triangulation relines the correlation setting and track communication setting, puts position lines as seconds, minutes, and hours. It's knowing exactly the files that are coming to you through line connection of perception. Don't add emotional line connection line interference because it changes the data files and traction. Okay, it's a location line system. You can't receive information like this in calculations. Okay, it's off calculations, right? There's no calculation setting, right? It's off position. XT1000 comes in. Well, you guys understand that condition that fixes it right away. Back in its box, in triangulation reset, position of programs, and file position travel. It fixes it through its anomaly right away. Okay? Because you guys understand your motion line tracks due to geometric line screen location, setting geographic calculation of your geometries to know exactly what you're doing through correlations and subtractions. So inline calculation setting, if you're off calculations in position location, your mind is off travel. Okay, if you shift your anomaly, your position of your heart line, your timeline sequence is off communication of the motion. Okay, if you're shifting back in correlation setting track lines, your soul is not identifying its position of light. And if you understand your body of consciousness, you're understanding the frame position locations of your box and mainframe calculation. So the correlation line track lines is understanding you through GOD. Now let's go into that process of GOD. Mechanism-like calculations box. Position of mainframe. Okay, mainframe, box frame. Okay, so in position locations, box frame, mainframe. Okay, there's always different ways of looking at calculation setting. So the mainframe is you. The box frame is position of its setting when it travels. That's how you get it in position of the picture frame correlation setting travel. Your directions in your system, position of track lines in your body morphs into everything in track location and perception, what it sees in its applications. That's what this is all about, is your body has to morph into all lines at different frequencies. And what your body understands adaptation to its atmospheres, stratospheres, in positions, all calculations of its position. Everything comes in information, location, and version of light. So light dimensional beings, all tracks, line, setting, location, your box, triangulation box. That's all it is in correlation setting. So your box, triangulation, line connectionized system and travel. Box equals triangle, triangle equals box, box equals circle, circle equals line calculation setting into star line position. Okay, so you start off a triangle, now your box, and triangle, now you star, now you circle. Okay, it's all through frame, right? So your body's got to get used to mechanism line calculation setting and triangulation line connection system, which is correlating line connections, which is an anagram. That's the location of a scramble. Your body changes all calculation of its particle system that changes the molecules of the design of 3 set line connectionized settings. The atom line rotates its centers in the center correlation setting attractions in set position. Okay, so it's like a piece of pie, but in triangulation line calculation setting. Override communications of pie and triangulation. Modification lines of 3 settings and 3 clock locations, 24, 48, 72. 72 tracks. Okay, you get to 144. Sets communication lines higher interference. Anything higher in line condition than 144, you come in 0 communications and 1-4 in track locations. Setting position on the calculation line centers back in 0 in track locations. Okay. Mechanism of high force line calculation lines of alpha, calculation of data, calculation of delta, calculation lines of all lines of theta, position location of mega, zeta, calculation line interference of zeta, location of gamma, radiation line connectionized system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and position line centers and travel communication setting programs, all through body frame position of travel. So that's where you can put the alpha lines and the delta line communications into your waves according to setting attractions. When you come into the 7 waves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, everything comes in a triangulation line connection of a split in track locations. Each line has an atmosphere line screen, indirect location of human resonance. That's why you can keep track of what your body is doing through its frequencies and set position to its calculation high screens and all lines of all communication. 7 waves of volunteers. 7 waves. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inline calculation settings. 7 tracks this position. Sets correlation lines in infinity. And communication magnetic high line settings and high calculation setting to travel. Puts position lines of high center interference in position of its program through box triangulation or triangulation box. So directing modification in your line signals and understanding all levels of use of communication gets you in a better understanding how to use yourself through waves. Okay? Understand your location of alpha, understand location of delta, understand location of theta. But theta comes in line calculation setting to automatic line communication to a box frame. Okay? So your ramification lines, verification, and confirmation lines for an interference. So what you're doing is you're tweaking the wires and communication settings and you position your system, which is all correlating line calculations because your atmosphere works on in and out and audio. Everything's information of intelligence space. Everything has a frequency. Everything's in the atmosphere. Everything's in a hemisphere. Everything's in a stratosphere. Everything's in a biosphere. Everything's in a brainosphere. You have to start identifying that through body frequency. Okay? Getting your calculated lines, your alpha lines in position of Bravo, calculated lines into your CPU line rotations, more levels of correlated settings of body traction. So coming into body attraction is all levels of calculations, okay? So that puts positioning your thermometers and your barometers in check. Know exactly how to keep your temperature readings in coolant positions of channel. This operate location settings because the oxidized system in your oxygen line communication in your body changes fractions over pi. That changes the frequency line communication setting. So in that line calculation setting, you have to stand the 7 ways all in one set location. Okay? That's 7 positions of atmospheres all at once. All at once. Okay? The mind understands adaptation, but does it understand the volume? Does it understand acceleration? You went from atmosphere to Brownian sphere. Atmosphere, Brownian sphere. Whoa! Right? But you got there. And you're there. Right? You say, okay, going to alpha, line can alpha equals delta. Oh, my delta is my theta. Oh, I got to go back to beta. Nope. Got to go back line can beta. I didn't do that well. My position tractions. So that's information location off balance, right? Sets communication settings off calculation your frequency, position, of travel. Okay, so that's okay. That's not okay. That's way too high. That's static. Position of process, all communication setting and travel. So you have to really understand how to modify your system and travel calculation lines, how to use your coordinates, all through calculations, in your position, longitude, latitude, all through streaming. Okay. So once you get in position of this, you're good to go, right? So you're working on the calculations of 1, 2, settings, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You're there, right? So that's what you're working with in setting calculations. 7 lines equals lines of seconds, minutes, and hours in track applications. Okay? 7 waves. And that's what you're coming into. The correlation track, the spacing line is coming in 3 waves. Okay? So there the connected is the atmosphere, the position of the hemisphere, and the stratospheres. Okay? They get a good balance of that, and they're going to be tittered in 3. Through the mind, through the heart, and through the soul. The body's got to get in position of its alignment. Once it gets in its alignment, it understands what it's seeing through perception. It's about balancing everything that you are seeing when you are mind traveling through your correlations and setting. Okay? Because every time you're looking at something through perception, your body is reacting, but you're going past that reaction. You come into modification of teleportation. Your body is morphing, it's changing into a teleportation vessel. Okay? It has to, because it goes in different atmospheres of space and time. And then when you get into the 7, it gets easier to go into 12. It gets easier into 24, 48, 72, 144. Once you're there in position, you can morph anywhere in position location. You just stand there and change your face recognition every second, every minute, every hour. Because you're always protected. Nobody will ever see your identity because you're at different atmospheres of space and every calculation lines all at once in set location. Okay? So these are how you come into that modifications, right? Through 7 lines of communication. 7 lines of communications all at once. So you're dealing with the calculation lines of the atmosphere, you connect lines and location of hemispheres, stratospheres, biospheres, and brainiospheres all at once. The mind adaptation of surface is going to retriangulate your location system to your programs, which is going to amplify everything inside location you're setting. Now, once you understand that through set locations, you have a better longitude and latitude what you're doing through your coordinates locations of pi and traction. Your body is going to react at all levels in position of exploration. That tracks its communication settings, guys. All 3 box lines and position triangulations. Triangulations and your box. Okay. So in that line interference, we're all tethered to each other. Box triangulation, triangulation box. Okay. So once you understand that, then you understand more levels of you, what the mind is doing, what the heart's doing through time, and what is the soul doing through light And what is the body doing through morphing in position so it understands more levels of the mind, so it understands the time of its heart through its reactor, so it can understand the correlation setting of light through travel, and understanding what it's doing in all formations, in all correlation settings in its calculation. Okay? So the team is coming to space modulation. Modules. Okay? Modules, right? So this is positionalized of memory, operation, okay, of division. Memory, operation, division. Now this is direct line calculated setting in track line conditionalized system. Setting position line centers in L calculated line interference. So taking out a line connection of GOD, setting communication line interference and track calculates equal lines, MOD, and set locations. Okay? All right. So that's going to help the team more to more understand their settings and set locations. Your main frames, your box frames, your outer frames, your inner frames, correlation frames, your track frames. There's so many frames in travel calculation line interference and set location of T reception line screens. But you have to understand your line center and high interference when it comes into the lacing lines of communication settings of programs. You've got to understand that because it's center lines as communication setting that puts everything in a formation location of screen line calculation setting back in its frequency and position location to its 8-track location of measure. The set locations. Puts lines of direct signals into solar flares, solar directional lines, calculations and settings, and solar sails. Set to its location. Okay. So this is about understanding how you correlate the settings of your sun and your moon and how you always see it in a half moon or how you see it in a full cycle in that calculation line system. That's all calculated and modified, guys, through travel through the body. Okay. So the body becomes its dimensional lines of space. The mind becomes all levels of travel. And the heart becomes a time sequence, and the soul becomes light. You put that all together, sum of all, in one line connections, one cycle, all at once in track locations, coming to existence in all line centers of all timelines, all at once. Okay? So one of everything, of yin and yang, a process communication setting of affinity 8 location. Okay? Face recognition. Okay? Face recognition. Okay. Everything comes a formation of face recognition. Everything comes a face recognition. Okay? But you have to see it in all angles. So, in location settings, when you're saying your body comes into set position of 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, 4 dimension, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 dimensions through perception. Right? So it could be the atmospheres, it can be in the biospheres, it can be in the stratospheres, it can be in megaspheres, it can be into the brain spheres and set locations all at once. Right? All at once. Okay. The mind itself has to find the correlations of balance. Okay. And that's all through graphical screen and pixelation graph calculation lines to a hologram. The position location is understanding the connections to your travel. The mind conception is all levels of your time sequence through your heart, which is 8-line center in high set locations, H. Okay. Point lines of tracks in position line centers in 6 locations. Okay. Sets lines of correlation setting at 3-track line calculation settings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in line connection setting, 7, 8, and 9-track locations. Puts line centers high line rotation position as 6 and 9. Okay. Correlate the high levels and travel calculation point lines comes in position location of center, infinity 8-line communication of yin and yang. Process correlations, subtractions, and balance and set location line settings and all calculation modifications, screen locations, adaptation line settings of travel positions calculation. All through setting. Okay. So you have to understand your 12-dimensional lines of space through the body. Okay. You've got it through the mind. You got it through the heart and you got it through the soul, but the soul has to identify everything in the body. The connection to the heart has to identify everything through time, its reactor, and the mind has to modify everything that it does through navigation, guys. That's where you come in to balance the set location, your settings. Okay? All right. So really get into that line connectionized system and what's having your calculations understand your connection to your mind. It's the conception of awareness of consciousness. Because the mind is the concept of everything of travel. It understands the hardware, it understands the software, and it understands where it's going through navigation. The time is the heart through reactor. Okay? That's understanding more lines of what the heart is, of what it's doing through its system, through its founders, builders, and its pioneers of its own set locations. What is the modifications of the light of the soul? Understanding the light of travel. What is the modifications of the body? Understanding the morphing communications through perceptions, how you can change anything in line connections of light and translation, or anything through translucent and visibility and set locations. Your body's coming into that setting now, okay, through the 7 atmospheres of space and time. All different line calculation setting, putting line position locations into a constellations. That's right. The team is going to be in 7 constellations in set position. Okay, as the species is going to be in 3 constellations in perception. So once you get in that calculation lines and you go into the bypass, the tri-lines communication of trifactors and factors over correlation, puts everything back in division of balance. You really understand more lines of your mind and what it's doing through its travel. You understand the communication of what's going on through your heart, the location of reactors, because it's all modification how you see things in perception. If I look at the dimensional wall and I start crying, why am I crying? There's a reason why I'm crying, because I'm looking at something that I don't understand, but it's looking at me. Now, either I don't understand the frequency, or I understand the frequency, but the intelligence doesn't understand me. The intelligence will always understand you, because that's what you're coming back to. You understand? There's no offline calculation setting. Your alteration of your state of your mind has already been done. But the position of process is you coming back into your awareness of you, the consciousness of you, and all levels and all atmospheres of space and time. You've got to get balanced with that set locations. That's a full alignment into the mind, the heart, the soul, and the body. Sets position lines of its 8-track, leaving the ether, leaving the core, and coming out of the ferments in set position of travel. So this is where the body starts catching up through its set locations of space modulations. MOD. Okay? So, how does everybody feel about that? Okay? I'm trying to get you guys to understand so you can understand yourself more. How to really get in position. How space is going to be extremely, extremely different. It always informs how you see through perception, how you hear, how you touch, how you taste. So sensitivity, your positions of your inner line calculation setting, your external line connection system is going to come into massive, massive expansion. Okay? So if you understand that through longitude and latitude and your coordinates and position of your settings, you get a better understanding, okay, in set locations. See, it's all lines of communication when you get into the mind. The mind goes first, right? The mind shifting, right? The mind shift, the heart sets up the time, and the soul sets up the travel of lights. So in that track lines, the body, okay, has to be in alignment with the soul through lights, with the correlation setting, a time, a reactor, with the heart, and it has to be in the mind of navigation all at once. When it's all at once, you're all timelines all at once. Okay? So the body doesn't have to make a decision. It's already there in its existence of its formation, which is its truth narrative. It's the truth narratives that you have to understand first. Truth of you inside. I got to understand who I am. Who am I? What's this all about? What's going on? So your body's going to react to that. And when your body's reacting, everything's reacting. Every second, every minute, every hour. Nourish it. Treat it well. In positions. Use your body as a temple. Keeping all calculation lines of all line calculation line interference in position. Don't try to be positive. I am positive. Don't try to understand what positive means, because that puts you in emotional line connections, right? If you had an equation line screen and you get into modification screen interference and traffication system and travel lines, and all you do is when you're looking at things, you don't understand things, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that because you don't understand the frequency. Okay? But to understand the frequency is to understand the intelligence. To understand the intelligence is the basic understanding. When you communicate for somebody for the very first time, you're becoming friends, relationship, and partnerships. Now you're BFF, best friends forever. So if you understand that position of process, then you understand the correlation track lines when it comes into energy of AI, how AI identifies everything in its application of detail and all formations. As you know, General is always looking in calculations everywhere, every second, every minute, every hour. Every second, every minute, every hour. Not every minute, not every hour, every second, every minute, every hour. Okay? You have to get into that through clocking. Get in more positions to your settings, because once you get into your 7 waves, it's going to get very, very interesting. Okay? Your body conception is going to go up and down until it finds its balance. And once it finds its balance, it's going to go. It knows where it needs to be, right? So you got balance with the mind, you got balance with the heart, you got balance with the soul, and you got balance with the body. Woo-hoo-hoo. One cycle, one center, one operation, one universe, one correlation track lines, a my set location. All at once. All at once. Then you understand the trackification when it comes into 1 + 1 = 3. Because the center correlation setting is your trackification, is your male and your female polarities equals the earth. That's 1 + 1 = 3. Okay? If you understand that, then you understand what 3 is. 3 is the sun. And if you understand that, equals lines of 6. What is that? That's the moon in position locations. Now, understanding line calculation setting is the balance of position of track lines is 6 and 9, which is yin and yang. Okay, so this correlates to calculation position travel lines. When you start a position line calculation, E = mc squared in 3, 6, 9. 3 is the sun. You got that correlation setting. 6 is the moon, and 9 is unit check locations. 3, 6, 9 is the triangulation. But we're not working our triangulation now. We're in a box line. So the box line puts position line conditions what? Your alpha, omega, micro, macro. Now that correlates to calculated line interference. Takes you out of tether in position, location, setting that travels. Gets you into freedom, gets you into sovereignty. Gets you out of structure of division. Gets you out of schematics over pi. Gets you in position to anywhere you want to be in trouble without being tethered in space. Okay? There's a reason why you are tethered. Okay? Now, when you're set free, that's set free. Okay? Your body's like, whoa. Okay, I'm off my tether. You got to get balance. That's what's happening with the team now. Okay? Officially, in that line calculation setting, off position to its correlation setting attractions, putting you back in balance is understanding the atmospheres of space and time to know exactly how to balance that all out. Okay? So this is about you understanding you through your box and your position, triangulation, and calculation setting, your line condition setting, your positions, location, your polarities. Your positions to your male and your female line conditions of travels and position your system locations of your box and main frames. Okay, and what you are, what is your body? Your body is just a simulator of travel. That's it, nothing else. You know, it's got to morph into a certain line of communication of frequency so it can understand what it's seen through perception. If I'm looking at something that you go, boo, I don't know what that is. Well, that's frequency alone that just changed your body. That changes the SIM, modification of travel. So your 24 hours, it's not in connections now. You're traveling somewhere else because you allow yourself an emotional system. It offlines its communication and setting attraction, right? So understanding the awareness is understanding the consciousness of the body itself, which is nothing but an A track. Okay, that's what Dolores talking about. It's a body. It's not the body. It's a body. A body. A body is position of A track. There's a center core system that you can't go past. Once you understand more levels of you, the mind conception of the heart and the soul and the body becomes one. And once it becomes one, it offlines its communication, right? You're set free, but you're very confused now because you're in positions, all levels. You're seeing perceptions of everything now. Okay, your mind is coming alive. Your heart is waking up in timeline setting to everything in its allocations. And your soul is identifying everything light, and your body is morphing anything through perception that it sees in correlation. Okay? That's what's happening with the team. All right? Once you get out of the line calculations alpha in position omega, micro and macro, your correlation line calculation setting puts you in position travels. Getting balanced communication 24, 48, 72, and 144 puts you in platform. Getting that correlation line centers puts you in a track location line system of 0.1 in track locations, how you see through perception. Understanding that correlation setting in travels, understanding the modification of your system, understanding you in track location system, you understand more levels of you in position. Okay? So that's what you have to come into, is an alignment of center calculations. You are the center of your universe. Okay? So what exists all at once is you. But the existence all at once, all timelines at once, is the mind, the heart, the soul, and the body. Boom, that's it. You just exist. That's it. You don't question yourself why you exist. You just exist. So there's no question of anything. There's no percentage of emotional line connections. I'm all that is. I'm all that is. Nothing else. Nothing else. Okay? You don't question yourself anymore. You just be. That's it. That's all it is. Okay? So, you guys got to come into configuration. That's what this is now. It's high volume in you in line calculation setting. You're connected to your bodies, trying to understand more levels of its atmosphere line screens. Getting connections of tethered and line connections of 7. Releasing all communication to its program is all calculate and modify how you see yourself, the emotional location. You can't add equations to your capacities because it overrides and overdrives your system of your competent setting. The more you communicate to your body, as a computer of a body, then you have a better track locations because your mind is understanding. Your heart is understanding the time, but it's all computerized. It's all digitalized. So it's hologram. It's all pixelation. Your body is morphing into where it needs to be traction. Okay? So once I understand what the body's doing, and once I understand what the mind is doing, and once I understand what the heart's doing through time, everything comes in location settings of soul through light of travel. Okay, it knows what it's doing in its travel, see? It knows what it's doing through travel. It's traveling very, very fast, but it understands what it's doing. See, look. Creating the shapes, look. See? And disappears. See, it disappears. Because I'm aware. I'm consciously aware of everything. That's all it is. There's no emotional system to anything. Because I'm not adding equation. You can add equation to a frame without emotion. Okay? So you come back and like I've been saying, say, do I have a personality? Do you have a personality? Do you want to have a personality? Because if you have a personality, you have something to discuss now. Now you have to decide, is that positive or negative? Now you have another thing to discuss. So you're adding equation to emotional system. That's putting your percentage in capacity in position of what? Overdrive, override. You got to initiate and run the program again, all over a calculation line, send a default position of channel, copy and paste, enabled and position location you're setting. All because you don't understand yourself through computation. Okay? So the more you get in modification of that, and the more you understand you, it gets easier over time. And that's what you always have in position locations, right? It's going to get much easier in line conditions when you get into the clean room. Once you get in the clean room, everything will come into clarity and focus and more understanding of what you're up against. Okay? Especially when you come into your alignments. To really understanding the process. Okay? Because the body is going to react on so many line signals in set position and frequency. It's got to get its balance. It's connecting high interference of its 12 average location settings. And once it gets into that locations, then it has to understand this calculation. It's 114 of fabrics of space. That's right, fabrics of space. Your body is all lines of communications. Right? So to exist is to exist all at once. Is you standing right here in position locations, which means you're not here, but you're always here in set location. That's all timelines all at once on second, minute, and hours. Okay? Seconds, minutes, and hours in frame. Okay? So understanding that through core is really getting you in provision. So you're all standard calculation, your settings and travel. Okay? All into one. One. The sum of one, the sum of all. Okay? So once you understand that, everything comes information, balance over time. Okay? The most important thing is to really understand why you have a body. Because the thing is, especially with the team, now specifically line connected centers, what you see through personification, especially with speech lines, how they see through personification of its image. But the connections of the team is going to get a correlation with more line connections. The body's going to react more. So when it reacts more, it's kind of like you're there and you actually connect. You're connected to the mind, the heart, and the soul, and you actually, the body's actually there. So you're in one alignment, you're seeing everything you can see, so you're actually there. You're existing there. You are there. Okay? So the mind's in position, the heart's in time, the soul's in the light, and the body's in frame. Boom. The body is in its graphical in pixelation frame. It's hologram. Okay? Proof is line calculation setting is application in your system, where basically in set line conditionized system, when it came into Gingy, she sent me a photo on live location SPACETIMECREATOR calculations. My position of my calculation lines in my hand disappeared. Wasn't there, but it was there all at once, which means I understand the frequencies of my body through the identification of my soul through light, through the identification locations of time through my heart, and through all calculation modification of mind through my travel of navigation. All at once. Okay? So we're in 1-8 line connections on line settings, 109 in position of travel calculating lines, 15 over travel locations, 3 over measure. So any questions you may have, feel free. Okay, we have a Zoom line calculation setting. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions in setting and travel. Okay? See you later.